I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about something Jerry Dipoto said in his press conference with the Mariners after the season was over.
The one thing I'll say, and this is more of a riff, we started this project, at the end of the 2018 season. We started to rebuild our roster. It turned around very quickly, and I've thought about this a lot over the course of the last couple of years, and especially here over the last 48 hours. We've built methodically. And we've built methodically in a way that I think the narrative has been that we're pushing the patience of a fan base or of our support. We've turned this around in about 2.5 years. And we have now been a contending club for the last 3 years, made it to a postseason.
Well, you guys started this turnaround, this rebuild in 2018. It's now 2023. You made the playoffs one time in that time period. And in the entire time period that you've been here, the 8 years that you've been with Seattle, you've made the playoffs only one time. So I'm really confused about what you're proud of when it comes to Seattle Mariners. So I wrote an article, why the Rangers World Series win should make the Mariners front office sick. Now, I know that I do have a tendency to rant about Jerry Dipoto. I want this guy fired. I'm a Seattle Mariners fan. I don't understand how we're sticking with this mediocrity of Jerry Dipoto and Scott Servais. I don't understand the decisions being made. I don't understand how we're okay with just being relevant in September and we don't want to chase a World Series. I don't understand how you can stick with a guy that says, hey, you only need to win 54% of your games, which is just really not true. I don't understand it. So I know that I have a tendency to rant about Jerry Dipoto, but it's all been earned. Remember, this is a guy who straight-faced said to the media less than a month ago, we're actually doing the fan base a favor in asking for their patience to win the World Series. And less than a month later, the Texas Rangers go and win the World Series, a team that lost 102 games in 2021. Okay, so what does that have to do with the Seattle Mariners? Why exactly should the Rangers World Series victory be so disheartening for Seattle Mariners fans? Because the Mariners have gone through countless rebuilds since 2001. And in all of that time, they only have one playoff appearance to show for it. Made the playoffs last year, breaking a 20-something year drought. They won in the first round, in the wild card round. They beat the Blue Jays, and then got swept by the Astros in the divisional series. Meanwhile, the Rangers, it took them less than 2 years to rebuild themselves and become World Series champions. Okay, so what did the Rangers do? What did they do that the Mariners didn't do? Okay, let's talk money. Let's talk spending. So the Rangers, they spent a ton of money to upgrade their team. They spent the fourth most money in baseball last year. Now, just because you spend the most money doesn't mean you're going to get the best results, right? The Mets proved that. The Mets spent the most in baseball by far. They had a terrible season. The Rangers spent the fourth most. They were smart about who they were investing in and what players they were bringing in, and it worked out for them. Jerry Dipoto justified the Mariners' lack of spending, saying that he and Scott Servais actually do have the authority to spend money to bring in more expensive players, but that's not their philosophy in Seattle. They want to grow homegrown talent instead.
And we'll do the best that we can in trying to achieve the best outcomes. And if that means it's big name players in either way, via free agency or trade, we'll do that. If it means we get better in other incremental ways, we'll try to do that too. In a perfect world, we'd be able to do both. And yes, we do have the freedoms to do that.
In 2023, the Mariners spent $30 million less than the league average. So I'm not even saying that put them outside of the top 10, puts them outside of the top 11, 12, 13, 14. No, it puts them outside of the top 15. They spent $30 million less. They were actually ranked 17. $30 million less than the league average and $120 million less than the Texas Rangers. That's according to Spotrac. So in other words, the Mariners are about 60% less willing to buy their way to a World Series than the Rangers. All right, let's talk. What else did the Rangers do better than the Mariners? Trades. By the time that the trade deadline expired in 2023, the Mariners made relatively uninspired moves. Let's see. They traded Paul Sewald for Josh Rojas, Dominic Canzone, and Ryan Bliss. They also traded for Trent Thornton and Zach McKeon. I don't even remember McKeon playing. I don't know if he got play time. None of those moves really paid off. Yes, Rojas did show some promise. Dominic Canzone kind of had some plays and did some cool things. But overall, was that worth Paul Sewald, who was an excellent closer? Probably not. The other moves for Thornton and McKernan, was that worth it? I mean, Thornton did play pretty well, but it's just not the type of move that you make when you're in a win now mode. The Texas Rangers were in win now mode. The Texas Rangers traded for Max Scherzer, Aroldis Chapman, Jordan Montgomery, and Chris Stratton. The Rangers were in win now mode. They made moves to try to win the World Series this year, something the Seattle Mariners just don't seem to be in any hurry to do for some reason, despite the fact that they've never even played in a World Series, let alone won one. The manager. Look, let's just be honest. Scott Servais is not the guy. He's not. He's got a career record of winning percentage of .516. He's batting .516. The Mariners keep extending him. They're satisfied with the job he's done. They like what he's done because he's keeping them relevant in September. And that seems to be an upgrade from some of the managers before him. Meanwhile, the Rangers, they accepted that we don't got the guy. So they moved on from Chris Woodward and they brought in Bruce Boucher. And in 1 year, Boucher accomplished more than Servais has in the last 8. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to see the Seattle Mariners win a World Series. I really, really do. I would love for them to prove me wrong. I would love for Jerry Dipoto and Scott Servais to just this year that they end up winning like 102 games and make the playoffs and go deep into the playoffs and maybe even to the World Series. And even if you lose the World Series, I would have to eat my words and go, okay, I was wrong. I was wrong. The way that they did it was right. You can build homegrown and you can save a ton of money and win and at least go to a World Series. And I'd argue that if you can go to the World Series, you can win the World Series, But I just don't see it. I don't see how Jerry Dipoto and Scott Servais, with the way that they look at baseball, the way they talk about baseball, the way that their philosophy for building a winning team, I don't see how that's going to result in a World Series win. It's really insane that a team like the Mariners that actually does have a ton of talent and is really on the cusp of being something special, they're not even really in the conversation for Ohtani. I mean, let's be honest. Ohtani is a player that Seattle should absolutely be going for, because if you can add that arm and that bat to your lineup, I mean, that's at least, I don't know, let's call it, let's be generous and call it 3 to 5 wins. I think it's closer to 10 more wins on the year, because you're getting an arm, so a guy that's going to be hard for teams to beat, and you're getting a bat, a great bat. Spend some damn money, get a championship to Seattle, please. We are begging you guys, but I just don't think they're going to listen. I think that Jerry Dipoto thinks that the system he has in place right now is a success. He looks at 2023 as a success. He thinks that, well, we got 89 wins again, or 88 wins, however many it was. Well, we got, we were right there, and the same amount of wins got us into the playoffs last year. But Jerry, most years that doesn't get you into the playoffs. 88 is not enough. It's really not. You need 90s. It needs to be 92 or more. If you have 92 wins a year for 10 years, I'm going to guess you make the playoffs 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10. Seattle Mariners really do need to move on from Scott Servais and Jerry Dipoto. I have another video where I talked about that, and I will place it somewhere around here for you to click on.